Thanks, everybody, for your time here this evening. It's great to see you all here. I am working with the committee, and I notice that Tom and Crystal and Sandy are here as well, to the Community Alliance going until November when we have our AGM. And it was formed really as an umbrella organisation for a number of community groups back in 2011. And I was the founding president, along with Tom and a couple of other people on the committee, to really get to the root cause of problems. Many of the community groups were at that point very concerned about development, planning issues and heritage, destruction of heritage. And we decided that the only way things were going to change was to get to the root cause, which was to change the planning laws in the state. And that's what CASA was set up to do. And it's terrific to see, after 10 years of strong leadership from Tom and then Crystal and last year Iris, that the fundamental principles of CASA are still retained, in that changes to planning are really needed to ensure we protect our heritage and to stop some of the really crazy developments that go ahead continuously and that drive us crazy. I just want to talk briefly about a good example of protecting heritage in my role as chairperson of the Mount Barker and District Residents Association, because I like to work on community engagement strategies. And just recently, Sandy and I have engaged with the State Planning Commission chair and a couple of people from the department to talk through issues around the changes to the technical amendment, miscellaneous code technical amendments, which were all entirely technical except for a couple of policy matters. The policy matters were very much heritage-based. Sandy and I went together as a team, and Sandy is, as you all know, an expert in heritage matters. And I can't speak too highly of that knowledge and the gift of being able to present that knowledge to someone like Craig, I think it's Craig Holland, I've just forgotten his name for the minute, who sat and listened very intently. But while Sandy spoke about the heritage matters and the importance of retaining heritage in the code and raising it to a better level, I talked about the community engagement part of the work that the Commission's trying to do. And I take on board Shane's comment about catch more flies with honey, that activity of engaging with senior leaders in the state government and actually meeting with them and proactively working with them to try and find the way that you can come up with mutually agreeable solutions, I think is a very good approach to take. And that example that Sandy and I have been working on will continue with the committee working through this expert panel's planned changes or consultation process coming up. But the example I wanted to speak briefly about at Mount Barker, where I've been on the executive for 25 years, and I almost feel like I'm due for a party of some sort. Carol's here, Carol Bailey. She's been on there longer than me, so she probably deserves the party more than me. But we've been working at Mount Barker in all that time on planning and development matters, but also other matters, and a lot of them heritage. And we're very lucky that that district and its towns and settlements really values heritage and the heritage buildings and trees, significant trees. They love their trees, and a good thing too. But in 2003, through the work that Iris did as a consultant, plus a couple of other people, we actually went through a planning amendment process which Council initiated, a heritage DPA, and we were able to get quite a few hundred, I think it was up to 600 buildings out of not artefacts, but gates and some trees listed onto a heritage register, both for local heritage and contributory items. That process engaged the community. It raised a few people's anger because they didn't want consultants stepping on their plot of land to look at the state of their house. But the end result actually was a really terrific outcome that has actually helped to preserve quite a lot of heritage buildings in Mount Barker. And more recently, I think 2 years ago, there was another update to that DPA for local heritage listing, and we were able to add another 20 or 30 items, again through community consultation, to that listing. So there can be some good results that through the engagement of the community and working with council and consultants, where we can actually have some really great results. And I'm a half glass full kind of person and always want to look at the positive. I'm never going to let the bastards get me down, kind of thing. So we've just got to keep on going. So, we've been showing at Mount Barker that there is really some good practices around heritage retention that have stood us in good stead and provide some really good practice examples. With Community Alliance, the work that the member groups do is terrific, and the umbrella organisation brings together all of these groups that have like-minded principles and objectives. And again, if we can together as a team, again, going back to catching more flies with honey, meet with senior leaders in government, meet with the expert panel, talk to the chairs of committees. You know, we keep on writing, but I actually think showing the examples of the impact of bad planning laws is a really powerful message. And when Sandy was able to show Craig Holland these examples of what happened to heritage buildings when the wrong planning decision was made and how alternatives could have protected that building, Craig was quite astounded by that. And so were the two department guys, because they sit in these ivory towers and they make these decisions and they write these documents. But actually, other than the street they live in and maybe the street they cruise around in occasionally, they don't really know the impact on the communities in a real tangible sense. And I think Community Alliance SA has a great potential to fulfil that role. And so hopefully in the coming months, with the capture of feedback for the expert panel's discussion paper, information was released today, get onto that mailing list if you're not on it. The opportunity to consult has commenced, and we will seek really valuable and valid examples of where the planning laws have made terrible, the outcomes of the planning laws have made terrible mistakes. What we're trying to do ultimately is have a seat at the table. And Tom, who was a founding member, talks to me about this a lot, and I believe with him wholeheartedly. If we can have a seat at the table where not only developers and the planning industry and local government are sitting and talking with the government, but actually community organisations are a part of that conversation up front and in the initial stages, I think it can only be for the betterment of our communities. So I think that's really all I wanted to say today, and never give up, that we just have to keep going.